Okay, it worked. I wonder what this does. Ah, I can put like little highlight marks. Cool. Then let's get started today, Todd. Thank you very much for joining us. I've had the opportunity to interview a couple people, but I'm still very new to this myself. The initiative behind this is to get to know people here in Tokyo, those who are involved in product management and see what the current landscape is. I wanted to ask you if you could take a moment to introduce yourself to our
Yeah,
audience.
great. Thanks for inviting me. Appreciate it. I'm Todd Berzer. I teach product management and I consult with product management teams. I'm based here in Tokyo. I'm from the US originally, and most of my work is in the US and then Asia Pacific, and a little bit Canada. So, yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to say, I think the last time that we had an event together was the first event that I ever hosted, which was how to get into product management held
Yeah.
alongside Level. And I think your insights during that event was very good for our audience because you're not coming from a, yes, you have an MBA and business experience, but before that you had a little bit of anthropological experience and how that ties into
Yeah.
product management, I find is quite exciting. But before we get into that, I was wondering if you could share a little bit more about your experience as a product manager.
Yeah. So I started product management at Hewlett Packard. I worked there for quite a while, about 20 years. And I was a worldwide product manager for color laser printers. And then I was a regional product manager based out of Asia Pacific. So I was based in Singapore and then Sydney as well. So managing the regional product management for the Asia Pacific region. Yeah, that was great work. He was one of the early leaders in defining and refining the role of product management. So I felt pretty happy to be there. HP was very disciplined, very focused, very strategic in how they view product management. And a lot of that became part of my product management style. And it also shows up in my courses as well. So I was a product manager at HP. I took a sabbatical. I needed a break. I'd been at HP for 20 years and I managed an organic farm in Oregon.
That's quite a
It was quite a break. It was pretty different. Yeah. The product manager for apples and grapes and ducks. But then I went back into it and led a product management team at Lytix, a company in San Diego, California, doing driver safety programs with vehicle cameras. Then I led the product team at a startup in Quebec, Canada. We were doing AI for shrimp farmers, tracking shrimp growth over time. For family reasons, we moved here because I teach on Udemy and I consult. It's work I can do anywhere. We're here now and happy to be here.
No, and I have to say it's really great to be in the situation that you're in now, where you have a couple of courses on Udemy, which we're going to link to later in description, and also have the chance to consult with different product teams. But I have to say it's fascinating that your professional experience covers such a wide range, from color printers to organic farm to AI for shrimps, and then also the tracking cameras. I'm curious, like you said, SP was one of the pioneers in terms of how product management and the role was defined. I want to get your take on how, for you, has the experience as a product manager changed as you've changed roles, and also now you're teaching product management.
One of the things that I think as product managers, we're always learning through our careers. Sometimes like project management or maybe some of the other fields that surround us don't change as much, but product management changes all the time. Yeah. It's a rapidly evolving field.
No, this is the part.
I picked up a cold from my grandson, so sorry. This is the way it goes.
Yeah, I'm trying to prepare myself.
When I made the transition from HP to Lytix, the company in San Diego, Lytix is primarily a software, it's a SaaS platform. Yeah. And HP, of course, has software, but the group I was working for was primarily focused on hardware. So I had to make that hardware to software transition. And that was a big one for me because if you've only worked in software, it's hard to sometimes think about hardware. And if you've only worked in hardware, it's sometimes hard to think about software to understand the differences. But there's some pretty major differences between how product management is done in both cases. A lot of similarities. You still want to understand your customers, your markets, all that. You're still going to work with your sales teams and marketing teams.
Right.
But that kind of product development path is a little different. And it's often related to the cost to correct your mistakes. If that makes sense. When I was working at HP, if there was an error in your product development, now you have 100,000 printers spread out in distribution centers around the world, and you've got to open the boxes and change something physically. It is extremely painful and extremely expensive. But then you go to software, and if I
Right.
think about the SaaS platform I was working in San Diego,
Right.
with driver safety. Let's say there's a problem with how videos are being displayed or something. There's a problem in the UI.
Yeah.
mean, you could correct that next week. Or if it's really serious,
Yeah.
you could correct it tomorrow or even today, right? You can do that at a pretty low cost.
Yeah.
So that fundamentally makes a big difference between software development and hardware development. You often have to be very careful. Whereas in software development, you can go fast, you can experiment, you put things out into the market. You can go through these discovery and delivery processes with incremental releases. You can do a lot of things. So there's a whole mindset change, and there's a whole set of capabilities that software enables for us product managers that make the job a lot of fun. But that is a transition. I had to go through that, the transition from hardware to software.
I'm wondering, surely you still have product managers for hardware devices. For example, the Google Pixel
Yeah.
phones. There's a podcast called Made by Google where they interview product managers involved in the Pixel lineup. It's fascinating to hear their process. They're talking about the material of the phone. They're talking how it opens and closes for the new fold. It makes complete sense. The room for error is a lot less. The feedback loop you get from your customers is a lot less because you have to release, wait, see how people like it, and then maybe give another year. But when it comes to software, that time span is a lot.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. The time spent to get feedback is much shorter with software. With hardware, sometimes I look at other product management courses that are out there, and sometimes
Yep.
they're just fully focused on software. And it frustrates me because hardware is part of our world as well. Software is the majority. Hardware is part of our world as well. And so we
Yes.
want to have the skills as product managers to be able to span both and to think both. But if you're doing hardware development,
Yeah, I will admit, I don't think many people have experience in product management for hardware because even you look at cars nowadays and they'll make the base car and go, oh, yeah, but we're going to add cruise control as a feature later. So we'll just update that. And so now cars basically become moving computers.
I think the trick is if you are doing hardware development, understands that mistakes are costly and there's a slower development path. But we should pull in best practices from software. We should be testing our product all
Right.
along the way. We should be getting feedback. We should even
Right.
try incremental releases with hardware, maybe in a small, prototype
Yep.
versions or beta versions. Or lots of good learning from software that we can pull in.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think there's been the approach of let's release this into production and see how it goes. But definitely in hearing the Made by Google podcast as well, they'll make little 3D printed
That's right.
prototypes, get an understanding of how that works. Not only that, but they'll test it by themselves. They'll test it with their family. Then let the kids play around with it and see how they
Yes.
interact with products. That gives you more feedback before you make a full commitment to a release. Because once it's out there, there's a lot less adaptability when it comes to hardware products. So I wanted to take the opportunity to pivot and ask you a separate question. You had mentioned earlier there are differences, of course, when it comes to hardware and to software, but there's also similarities such as having your customer first and trying to maintain a good discoverability workflow with the customer. So I know from our previous conversations that you have an educational background in anthropology. So I wanted to ask if you can touch on how that has impacted your approach when it comes to putting the customers first.
The anthropology, for me, often people say, what? Anthropology background. It is, but I think it's absolutely relevant for product managers, and I'll explain why. So anthropology is really about the study of cultures and peoples and societies, right? And anthropology brought us this idea of ethnography. So this idea that it's like deep hanging out within different groups in society, but with us product managers, deep hanging out means deep hanging out with our customers or potential customers or ex-customers or our competitors' customers. And it's really about participant observations, deeply understanding the lives of our customers and how our products fit into their lives. So anthropologists have been doing this for a while. So the nice part about this is that we can pick up a lot of their techniques, things like ethnography, things like, to put it in our context, really just customer interviews or going to watch people use our products, going on site where they are actually using our products, understanding how our products fit into their lives. All of that is just applied anthropology, and it's an absolutely huge part of our work. Yeah.
I was listening to a separate podcast over the weekend, and it was talking about how there's this lady who works at a orphanage, and you have this church community, and they come and they're like, "Oh, we have a whole bunch of toys that we want to give you, so here you go." the first thing the kids do is they break the toys into little pieces. And the church people are like, whoa, what are you doing? We just gave you this lovely toy. Why are you
Yeah.
breaking it up? The people that provided the toy, they of course go, these kids are strange. Why are they doing this? We don't understand. And she realized because of the context, they're in this orphanage. They don't have big locker rooms. They have a shoebox, and everything that they own needs to fit in that shoebox. So these kids are breaking into the shoebox. But you won't realize that without, like you said, the deep hanging out and that level of insight to be like, this is why they're using it. And personally, I've had the experience with Google Calendar. I'm someone who calendars everything. I show that to my friends and they go, that's so uncomfortable that you have everything planned. And for them, their calendar, like 2 weeks from now, is just vacant. And it's interesting to interact with people to that level and to understand what that difference is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the stuff I think as product managers, we want to know the what. And sometimes product analytics can tell us that, or surveys can sometimes tell us that, but we really want to know the why. Right? We got to get a level deeper. So if we want to know the why, that means we got to get on and talk to people, right? And it might be calls like this, or preferably if we can, go and talk to people face to face, in person, and watch them use our products. That's where you get the insight. If you're looking for Me Too products, you don't need to do this work. You can just copy your competitors or do what corporate wisdom suggests you should do. But if you want innovation, if we really want to move the needle, if we really want to have an impact, this is our deepest source of insight, is these anthropological techniques of getting out, talking to people on an ongoing basis, really deeply understanding the lives, work lives, or whatever it is of our customers.
Can I ask then, because, so for example, I'm a scuba diving instructor, and over the weekend, I went diving with someone who works professionally as a UX researcher. Their role and responsibility sounds very similar in this case, like the level of research that you want to do and you want to go out into the field. I'm curious, do you see these roles overlapping in terms of the product manager should also be very much involved in UX research, or how do those two, assuming you have two individuals in each role, how do they work?
I think we should partner up with product designers, with UX researchers, or if it's hardware and industrial designers, we should partner up with them. Also, we should partner with our engineering leads. It's that triangle of people that I think should do this type of work.
Yes.
Because we all have slightly different perspectives. As product managers, we're going to be directing the full product evolution together with our engineering teams and our UX designers. The UX designers are a little bit more focused on how the user is interacting with our products and making sure things are transparent and easy and comfortable. So we have slightly different perspectives, but we want that. We want those different perspectives. And if we're out talking to our customers, if we're on Zoom calls with them or whatever it is, we should pull in our designers and our engineering.
And that overlap when you have the product manager. And how do I say, the reason that I ask is because product management as a role can sometimes be a little bit vague. We had one individual I interviewed who works as the director of product design. They do software for hotels, like reservation software and check-in. As part of their workflow, every week they go to the hotel and they'll just sit in the lobby and watch the customers using the system, and how do they use it? How do they navigate? What kind of experience do they have? One of the things that they wanted to do was KYC. You hold your passport in front of the camera and let the camera identify. But then only by being there do you realize that people don't recognize how close they need to hold the image. So then they added a frame, but they made the frame saying you need to show your passport, but the frame was really small because it's just an icon. Now you have people holding the passport here, hoping
That's great.
it picks it up. Your point resonates so much. There's so much information that you don't understand just by looking at analytic data, but really going out there and understanding the people and how they're interacting with the products can really shape how you then define the roadmap.
That's right. I agree with that point. We got to be really humble as product managers. Humility is a virtue here, right? We think we know what is going to work in the market. We do all of our work, but you take it out and you realize people actually interact with these differently. Maybe some people get it, but a whole segment of people don't get it. That's what we got to find out. We have opinions about things, but we also want to verify them.
And I think what you said at the beginning of this interview really makes sense. We're fortunate to be in a profession where we're always forced to learn, and we're always forced to be humble, take a back seat, be like, I don't know everything. Give me that room of error, that space to learn. You get thrown into situations where you're like, okay, I'm going to take 2 months to understand how we can identify the size of a shrimp. and then track their
Yeah.
growth. Let me learn, and then we can go from there. I'm very fortunate to be in a position where we can learn consistently.
I agree. And that's the fun part of this job. Most of the people that are successful in product management really enjoy that part of the work. They really enjoy working with customers. They really enjoy going through the discovery process, really refining their products. The other thing I'll say is that we often, we can test our products, but we often don't. There's just things we just don't know. You don't realize until you get out and test it, right? You just wouldn't even have thought about it, right? And so I'm going to give you one example. So when we were doing this work with shrimp, measuring the size and growth of shrimp, one of the questions that we had for one of the reasons of our product is we had to know the amount of security that shrimp farms have. So what kind of biosecurity to prevent viruses, right? If you get viruses into your shrimp pond, you can lose $50,000 in a night. So we went to a shrimp hatchery in a shrimp breeding facility in Florida. And we wanted to know how serious is biosecurity, right? So we go there and they ask us, have you been on a shrimp farm in the past 2 days? One of the guys I was with had been, so no, you can't go in. Then they asked us to put on lab coats and change to their boots. When we walked into the facility, we had to go through a purple disinfectant that we put our boots into. Okay.
Wow.
So all of this, we're starting to answer our question is, yeah, biosecurity is pretty important. Okay. But then there was a dog running around, just a pet dog of this breeding facility. And the dog runs outside and jumps right over the purple disinfectant bath and comes running in beside us. It just made me realize, okay,
What?
they're serious.
Alarms, no?
They're serious, but it's just not the Ebola level or coronavirus testing lab. And I guess that's just one example, but it's just, you don't know the answers to these things and you don't feel them. We could have asked all the experts about how important biosecurity is on shrimp farms or shrimp breeding facilities. They would have all said it's very important. Okay. What you really want to know when you're guiding your product details is what you want to know that answer at a much deeper level. You want to know just that story that I described. How serious is biosecurity in our case? If you think,
yes, we take it seriously, but if the dog wants to run through.
That's right. That's right. And this, as product managers, that stuff sticks with you. Those kind of experiences stick. You get suddenly in your gut. You don't just know it academically. Right? You don't know it because you read it. You don't know it because an expert told you. You know it firsthand. And that, I think, is the insight that we need. And that's why I think all these anthropology techniques, deep hanging out, ethnography, watching people use our products, getting out on site, that's where it's all important because that's where we find innovation.
And may I ask, do you find that is being prioritized for the role of a product manager, especially when it comes to software, which is something that you don't often see people interacting, or you assume by having enough analytics and enough tracking, we can get into the mind of the user? Do you find that companies still take the additional step to prioritize actually getting out there and watching people use it freely, like not in focus groups, but how the product is being interacted with?
It's a best practice to do this, but no. When I consult with companies, I'll often go in and you talk to your customers. They will say, last month we talked to somebody or a little bit, or our CEO talks to them occasionally. But often the answer is some form of no. And that's just a mistake. I know you're active in reading and studying on product management. If you read and listen about best practices, everybody will tell you that this is important. Teresa Torres has nice examples of this. She talks about how important this is. Marty Kagan will talk about this.
She's the one who wrote the book.
Continuous Product Discovery.
Sorry, I just want to ask Teresa Torres. She's the one.
Yeah.
Kagan does Inspired, if I'm not mistaken.
Marty Kagan did the book Empowered, and he's got his product group as well. He has some nice blogs. Rich Mironov, a friend of mine, he's got some really good stuff as well. Everybody will tell you to do these customer interviews to get out and talk. Product managers typically don't do enough of this, or they don't do it at all. So my advice is do this because it's a foundation for everything that we do as product managers. Try to talk to a customer every week. Have an in-depth interview every week. Because you want to build that knowledge over time, and you also have new questions over time. Just keep that pretty continuous.
And so this ties it into the next question I had. I do read a bit of the information on best practices, but you being in your unique position where you get hired by a company as a consultant to improve the product management processes, carry a set of best practices in mind, and then you see what's actually happening. How do you pair the two to help the customer?
It's an important point. There is a generic set of best practices that you can apply, but they
Mhm.
always have to be adapted to the specific situation, right? So if you're in a startup or doing commercial cleaning equipment or driver safety, you've got to adapt it. I think that's the joy of our jobs as product managers is that we're going to take these industry best practices and we're going to apply them, but they always have to be adapted to a specific company. We're not at the point where generative AI can replace us yet. There's a lot of thinking that has to go on about what we're doing, especially the
Yep.
qualitative side of our work. That's the part that takes a lot of thinking, a lot of work, trying to deeply understand our customers.
I think because, and that's one of the sources of frustrations when people ask me, like, oh, what does a product manager do? It really depends on what the company is, what you're looking to do, and also what your role is. Like a product manager who's trying to do machine learning identification and forecasting of shrimp growth is very different for someone who's trying to design a printer, for example. I'm curious if you had to sum up what is product management as a whole, how would you convey that to someone who maybe isn't involved in the field?
Yeah. As product managers, I think we're responsible for the full life cycle of our products. We take a holistic perspective on product management. We're responsible for the full life
Yep.
cycle. We want to design products that thrill our customers, delight our customers. We want to knock back our competitors. We want to have competitive advantage. We want to generate profit and long-term success
Yep.
for our companies. That's our goal. But I think in terms of what we do, first of all, we have to have a deep understanding of our markets, our customers, our competition. We need to think about a
Mhm.
product strategy. Where are we trying to go? What's our product vision? What's our product objectives? How are we going to get there? And then we need to convert that into how we're working with our engineering teams
Yep.
and going through this discovery and delivery process, taking all of our insights about the market. And then we're trying out some different ideas. We're testing the market, see what works, what doesn't. And then once we launch our products, we still got work to do, at least when we're thinking holistically about our products. We've got positioning, pricing. Some product managers are responsible for pricing. We're part of a committee of pricing, working with a sales team, working with a marketing team, even end of life of our products. Some product managers are subsets of that.
It's a very
But it's
big
a
circle.
very big circle. And I think that's, yeah, it's a little overwhelming, but that's part of the joy of the job, right? This is not a small job. So we have a lot of personal room to grow, but we've also got a lot of room to really make an impact on our companies, right? If we do our jobs well, we can really help out our customers. We can really set up our companies for long-term success. And that's the fun of this job. We've got a big opportunities with this job.
No, I completely agree. I think the potential of the
Yeah.
position is endless because you're either expected to adapt to certain circumstances or the level of responsibility that you take to coordinate across teams. The way that I sometimes see it is I have a lot of respect for the engineers because sometimes I feel like the architect is, okay, this is what we're trying to make and we need to design it in this certain way. We're not the ones who are actually
Right.
making the item. So no matter how much research I do, if you ask me to make it, I'm just sitting there. No, I have a blueprint, but
Yeah.
I can't put anything together. So I have a lot of respect for the engineers. But at the same time, to work collaboratively, like very closely with the engineers, and then making sure all of these other sort of stakeholders that you're working together with are aligned is such a joy and such a rewarding opportunity to be in such an influential position.
You're leading, if you are a director or a VP of a company or even a CEO of a company, what are you going to do in that role? You're going to be organizing teams to provide benefit to your customers. You're going to be organizing teams to create a competitive advantage. You're going to be organizing teams to create profitable products. That's just what we do as product managers. So I think this kind of work as product
Yes.
managers, it's just excellent executive training as well, where as product managers, I think we should all take advantage of that.
And that's why I think you've seen the trend recently that most CEOs are previously heads of product or chief product officers, and they're moving into CEO positions. That's true for Adobe, for YouTube, Instagram as well. It's a trend that is still relatively new, like maybe in the last 3-4 years, but it's definitely gaining steam, which is exciting. I want to ask about your Udemy courses a little bit. Can you give a general gist of what topics you've covered and who you're making these courses for?
Yeah, I've got 6 courses out on Udemy. There is a product management one-on-one course.
Yep.
That was the one I started with. And that is a course meant for new product managers or product managers with 2 to 3 year experience. And it takes the approach of what we've been talking about, that to help people can become more strategic product managers, more impactful product managers, and take a holistic approach.
Right.
from understanding our customers to working with our marketing and sales teams, and in particular, working with the engineering teams to do this discovery process.
Right.
I've got another course on smart tips for product management, which is quick bursts of skills on different product management areas. And I've got one for VPs and directors of product management. So if you're leading a product team or wanting to move into a product leadership role, the intent of that course is to get you some of the skills you need to do that work successfully. Yeah. I did a course on product-led growth. So this whole idea where we offer people ways to try our products before the paywall. The majority of SaaS products now are experimenting with this or doing it. Product-led growth will be. I just did released a course on product strategies, which is one of the harder things that we do, but really thinking through how we can have a longer-term impact on our products. So how do we think through product vision, objective, and strategy? How do we roll it out? How do we experiment on the strategy? I did one on insightful customer interviews. So all the stuff that we've been talking about here.
I have to say the breadth of your courses is rather impressive.
Oh, thanks. It's fun to enjoy it.
But then, so clearly you're covering such a wide swath. Where do you find your inspiration, or where do you find your resources that you're using to prove what you can then teach these courses?
Yeah. I always want to keep these courses extremely practical, extremely real. It's something that, as a new product manager, if you're in India or Brazil, I get students from all over the world. So, it is something useful for them. It's got to stay real. It can't be theoretical. The work that I've had leading product teams, combined with the consulting work they do on an ongoing basis and the coaching work I'll do with product managers and product leaders, it's that combination that's providing the energy to the insight, hopefully, that shows up in the courses.
There's a book I read recently by something Cleon, and it's basically the premise is to show your work. You don't necessarily need to be 100% expert to teach something, but instead you take the experience that you have, you take the knowledge that you've gained, and you can teach that, and that provides so much benefit to the next person. And so I think, honestly, the courses that you put together, and I know for the product strategy one, you reached out a little bit to our community to ask, does anyone have any advice? And it's such an honor to be in a position where you can take the experience that you have and teach that to students through Udemy all over the world.
I do enjoy that. And a lot of people responded to that request. So to talk about product strategy. So that was excellent.
Yes.
So that was
That's
excellent.
good to hear.
And so that was the other thing that I think helped me, especially in the product strategy, because I know my experience with product strategy. I know the companies that I've worked with, but there's a huge world out there of product management and different types of companies, different types of industries. To do these courses, I reach out because I want to hear like all the different experiences of people out there. What has their experience been with product strategy? I did the same thing with product-led growth. So like, what is your experience? And that helps grounded by just seeing the perspective of a lot of people around the world and here in Japan. So.
Because what I find fascinating, you're mentioning product-led growth. I didn't realize that term was only coined in 2016. I find it fascinating how new all of this is. And as myself, a product manager with only 2-3 years experience, and that being in Japan, where I find you don't maybe have the best practices being implemented in companies when you're assuming the role, there's so much room to learn, but at the same time, the role is evolving as well. And so by doing what you're doing, where you reach out to other members in the community, which is similar to what you would do in a product management position and see how people interact with the product and understand what their needs are. Just collect that information together and make a course is really important.
And I do think that if people are looking at a career in product management, the good thing is there's so much upside with this work. There's no shortage of things to learn, right? Like product-led growth, as you mentioned. This is really just the past 3 to 5 years. This has really taken off. And the term itself is not even maybe 7 years old. There's so much we can learn. There's so much upside.
That's an interesting way to put it. But I wanted to touch on something you just said. Your courses range from brand new product managers to those who are trying to do product strategy or heads of product. A lot of the members in our community also want to get into product management. So they're maybe in product adjacent roles, such as UX design, or they're heads of their software engineering team, or they're the lead marketing manager. What recommendation would you have, just high level, for someone who wants to get into product management as a role?
Yeah, I think there's a core set of work. We do a lot of things as product managers, but we can take it down. A core set of things we do is like we really understand our customers. we work with the rest of our team, like our engineering team and our product designers, to think through ideas on how to answer the customer opportunities or the customer problems. And then we experiment with that and go through a product evolution process. To me, that's the beating heart of what we do as product managers. Even if you're not a product manager today, anything we've been doing in your current job, side job, or side project or whatever, to learn about those different areas, learn how to understand customer needs, talk to customers, learn how to work with a team to come up with ideas to answer those needs, learn how to go through a discovery and delivery process where you're just working through how do you evolve a concept, testing it out. Anything you can do in that area is going to help you to be a product manager, but it's also going to help you to give you stories to talk about and position yourself when you go for your first interviews.
I will admit, after the event that we had last year where we're talking about how to get into product. So because I run a scuba diving club here in Tokyo, where I take people out scuba diving, and I never saw that through a product management lens, but I realized my customers I have to rely on user acquisition and user onboarding when I'm trying to get students, or I'm looking at how do we retain returning customers and what kind of events are they looking for. And so it's surprisingly insightful to take a core product management mindset and map that onto something that you think wouldn't apply. And then that experience ties well together. And after that event last year, that kind of changed my perspective on how am I approaching just a hobby to make that into something that's really bringing value to our customers.
That's a great example. So you leading the scuba diving club, you are going through a product management process. And even if you're not a product manager, you may not have thought about it, but you are still going through that process. Often when people want to move into product management, they've actually already have some experience that they can think back and or something they're doing today. Yeah. They can start as they learn about product management, applying some of the concepts and frameworks that we think about, and they share those experiences in that kind of product management context.
Yeah, one member of our community recently transitioned into product management, but previously she was the head of customer support. So she was directly interacting with the customer, maybe sometimes more than the product manager of their product does. And so you get these conversations and you get these insights. And so she's recently transitioned into a product management position where, okay, now I can do something about the problems the customers are coming to me with. And so you carry a lot of that into, like you said, the beating hearts of product management, which I think is important.
Oh, that's excellent. And I would assume the person you're talking about, she's going to benefit from everything that she learned in that customer experience role or that customer support role, that she's going to pull all that into the product management role.
So I wanted to take the opportunity to ask one last question. I know that you said at the beginning of this interview that you moved to Japan with family, but you've been in Japan, I think, for a decade now,
3 years,
if I'm not mistaken.
2.5 years.
3 years. Okay. So I wanted to ask, what's your experience with product management specifically in Japan? Like, I know that you do some work in the US or in Canada and overseas, but I'm curious what your insight is regarding product management with maybe clients that you've had here in Tokyo.
It's interesting here. The product management worldwide, I'll talk about that first, is spreading to all sorts of industries, right? So one of the consulting clients I had in the US was making road paving. Traditionally, that has not had product management, but product management, because it's such a powerful approach, it's actually spreading to a lot of industries worldwide. It's moving out of just software and core technology companies and core hardware. It's moving into a lot of different industries, service industries, traditional insurance companies, everybody. The interesting thing about Japan is that Japanese companies haven't moved as fast into product management as companies elsewhere. But it's such a powerful model that it's good to be in Japan because there's so many new opportunities to apply product management to different industries here. That's the exciting part, I think, about being.
I was listening to a podcast about the future of product management. If you're thinking in the framing of product-led growth, you're thinking about delivering value to the customer. This is something that sales or marketing used to do. In Japan, traditionally, it goes, okay, we make the product. Now we're going to throw our money at marketing, and that's going to make it work. I had someone who worked as a consultant in a previous interview, and she was saying, my customers don't know their users. They have a persona and they make something for the persona, but they never talk to the users. Instead, they design a product for the persona and then rely on the marketing and make it work. I think that model has existed for a very long time. The shift to product-led growth is very much the understanding. I think Amazon demonstrates this really well. where you have the customer first and customer is core. Let's go from there. And to see the scale that Amazon's grown in itself, I didn't realize that product management is making its way into road paving equipment. But it's fascinating to see that. And I think your point is true here in Tokyo. There's still a lot of potential. There's a lot of growth. One of the companies that I was interviewing with when I was job hunting last year, they were saying currently we're bringing members of our sales team over into product management because we think that's where the bigger potential is. I think that's such a core shift that's happening because there's so much opportunity as it's still quite new. I'm excited to see what the next generation of product management here in Tokyo.
I think so too. Yeah. And I know with a lot of Japanese companies, because to develop great products in Japan, the companies here have developed excellent products. To do that, you need to get out and understand your customers. If you don't do that, then you're not going to develop those excellent products. So it's not that companies here haven't been doing that. They just haven't been set up around a product management structure. I know Toyota, when they designed the Tundra pickup in the US, did all of this ethnographic research, went to logging camps, they went to farms, they went to factories, everything in the US. It was often the lead engineer that did all that work. But it's product management work. That kind of work is what we would call product management.
Sure.
That work is happening for excellent companies with excellent products. I do think there is a benefit to structuring a role around what we do rather than having a little bit in engineering, a little bit in sales, a little bit in marketing. If you can actually put the focus on that's the power, I think, of product management. If you can put a focus there, then you can really help drive innovation. You can really help drive much better products.
No, that's very true. And looking at Toyota, I think is a shining example what potential it can unlock. Like they released a new Prius car where I think it's a plug-in hybrid. So the first 44 kilometers is done all on the battery and after that you use gas. But up until now, it's only been a hybrid model, but they realize people maybe aren't ready for the full electric shift. And that doesn't come from making a guess in the boardroom, right? That comes from actually going out, seeing how people are driving, what their driving patterns are, and applying product management principles, even if you don't necessarily have that role, and unlocking the potential that I think this country has. There's so much potential in Japan. And I'm excited to see as we coalesce behind product managers or the role, what potential that will unlock.
Yeah. And I teach at Temple University as well. So I teach courses on product management there. And it's mostly people coming from companies that don't have a formal product management role. It's fun to see that combination because my students are often working through how to apply these concepts in their companies. But in many cases, their companies, they're making great products, already doing some of these contexts, doing some of this work. It's just not, maybe it doesn't have quite the structure and focus that we can bring as product managers.
I will say that seems a little bit difficult. My first company, I was assigned as product manager, but sales and marketing had a lot stronger voice. We're talking with the customer, trying to do work, and then it has to be 60-40 with sales and marketing taking the lead. It's difficult to do your best work, if that makes sense. I'm curious with your students, what experience do you have them doing product management things, but then trying to coalesce a little bit more influence in the role?
There is a common style of product management worldwide where we are just order takers. We are just delivery people. We're gonna hear what sales wants. We're gonna hear what our CEO wants. We're gonna hear what marketing wants, and that's what we're gonna do for our biggest customers. It's really an unrewarding type of product management, and it's unfulfilling. I never wanted to do that. It really doesn't work in the long run. If you're just listening to your sales team, we have great sales teams. So they understand our customers. And we love them. They do great work for us, but they're not product professionals. Right. So they are not going to ask the questions that we want to ask. They're going to hear about problems in the sales context, and they're going to want to figure out an answer pretty quickly because that becomes an objection to a sale. They're very goal oriented, but their goals are not always our goals. So we want to make great products for a full set of customers, for market segments. So we need that kind of in-depth knowledge. We can't just rely on sales teams. So if we're just these order takers, kind of job shop type product managers, we're just going to have Me Too products at the end of the day. It's not going to be a very rewarding job. If that's the company culture, you're not going to turn that around right away. But what we can do as product managers is we can start to get the knowledge ourselves, start to do the work ourselves, start to talk to our customers, start to understand our market, the market segments, start to understand our competitors, put together a product strategy, go through these discovery and delivery paths when we develop our products so that we're not just taking this idea and shoving it out into the market. We're actually testing it, right? And so All of that stuff that gives us data, that gives us knowledge, and that gives us some credibility. So step by step, you can start to melt some of that, the kind of dysfunctions of the culture, kind of just the order taker culture. We can get there. It does take time. Company cultures don't turn around, but we can do this as product managers. We can step forward and take a much more active role.
I will say one thing that resonated with me strongly, and I want to end on this note for entry level product managers. One of the strongest things they can do is to have an opinion about their product. And in this case, where you're saying the CEO will say, "Oh, but I want the button there." And it's okay, but is that the best thing to do? Why do we want it there? What impact does that have? If you have a company that's CEO led, which many small startups are because that's where they're growing, but if you're looking at a bigger scale, it takes a lot also for a CEO to acknowledge, I don't know what the customer wants because I haven't had an interview with the customer in months. And you then become separated from the people that are actually using it. And so from what you had said in that keynote and what you just explained, by going through discovery, by better understanding the analytics, by communicating with your customers, and then also with the stakeholders within the company, it sets you up to have an opinion about the product. In carrying that, you can slowly move the culture of a company. And I think in doing so, there's a lot of potential here in Tokyo as that shift starts to happen in the coming decade.
Yeah, completely agree with that. We can make that shift and we need to make that shift as product managers. If we really don't understand our customers, we don't understand our markets, we don't really have a strategy, if we're not going through this discovery and delivery path, what are we doing in our meetings? We're just taking corporate wisdom and guiding our engineers, whatever the sales manager said, whatever the CEOs, whatever's floating around in the air. That's what we're guiding our engineering team. We can do so much better than that. We get out and do our work and we get the data, then we can have much more impact and really have a much more fulfilling job.
No, I completely agree. That's how we unlock the potential of the role. That honestly, that's the future. It's exciting to move to that. I wanted to say thank you very much, Todd, for your time. It's been very insightful for me. I'm still a new product manager, and you being someone who's been in product, both hardware and software, and now teaching, and you get to interact with so many different circumstances in which product management applies. It's been really insightful to have this interview with you. Can I ask, where can people find more? If you can let us know about your Udemy links, and I can add them in the description below. Do you have a personal website?
Yeah, I've got the Udemy links. Mostly I just work through LinkedIn or the Udemy website that people can reach out to me, or the Udemy courses. And I'm teaching at Temple as well this fall. So if somebody wants to take a course and join that course as well, that'd be great.
Okay, I will add all of that into the description below so that people can find these courses. I might actually check out your product management one course.
It's great you're doing this. It's great.
As you said, we never stop learning.
Yeah, we never stop learning. That's right.
This project is an opportunity for myself to learn, but also to share the insights with our community. Because as you reach out the community to ask about product strategy course that you put together, there's so much knowledge. I think that there's a benefit to thinking local and thinking what are the people here in the city that have this impact. This is just a way to give back to the product managers and aspiring product managers that join our monthly events.
It's excellent. I've enjoyed the monthly events as well. It's very good.
All right. I know you're going to be on holiday for a couple months in the States and Canada, so enjoy backpacking. All right.